Prediction markets revenues, as I mentioned, now bigger than that from stock trading. The business did not exist just a few quarters ago. When does it overtake crypto revenues?
And that's a good point. It's a very new business for us. It's nascent as an asset class. Prediction markets really entered the mainstream in the 2024 election, which is when we launched our offering. And I think we're just at the beginnings of this new asset class.
Does it become the biggest business?
Well, I don't really think about it that way. So Robinhood is a financial super app. We're striving to serve all of our customers' financial needs across every asset class and every financial transaction worldwide. So I think there's plenty more room to run, but there's also plenty of room to run in our other business lines. We have 11 lines of business generating $100 million in revenue or more per year, with plenty more on deck.
Well, and we're going to get to more on crypto, but I do want to stick with prediction markets for a second because it's kind of like what everybody is talking about right now. It's a big part of in fact, it's a big part of Bloomberg crypto now. How much is sports related on the platform? Because our Bloomberg Intelligence team does an analysis of Kalshi, for example.
Yeah.
They say 80 to 90% roughly of the activity on Kalshi is sports related. How much of that is sports related on Robinhood?
Yeah, it's a big chunk of it for sure, but we are seeing we're seeing non-sports contracts continuing to gain share. And sports is just easily understandable, right? You're seeing prediction markets being a disruptor and an alternative to traditional sports books. And there's already an established behavior there, whereas general event trading is a little bit newer. It's harder for some customers to wrap their heads around. We do a lot to educate customers on that. But we see it growing. And in fact, as the product matures, we see a world where actually non-sports eventually overtakes sports.
I'm still going to stick with prediction markets. It's just too interesting. So is Robinhood, you're partnering right now on infrastructure, but is the goal for Robinhood to have its own integrated prediction market exchange and clearing system?
We did announce a joint venture with Susquehanna, which is one of the leading market makers, to launch Rothera. So we acquired LedgerX, if you're familiar,
Yes.
which is a long-established futures DCM and DCO. And that actually is going to go live this quarter. So for a while, we've been partnering with third parties to provide the exchange and clearing infrastructure. But now we have a vertically integrated stack later this quarter.
So what role would Kalshi play in Robinhood's ecosystem once you fully launch that one?
They would be an alternative exchange provider along with ForecastX. And who knows, we might also integrate with more exchanges. Really what we're looking for is how do we give customers choice and flexibility and give them the best pricing and the best access to contract selection.
Any names in your list other than Kalshi that you're looking to tap?
I mean, I think we've had conversations with all of the players. And I should also say on the Rothera side, a lot of people are interested in coming to Rothera as well because they know Robinhood brings a lot of distribution, a lot of usage. So we've been hearing from, folks that want to integrate with Rothera at launch, and they see the combination of Robinhood and SIG as a very, very strong one to bring liquidity into the market.
I've spoken quite a bit about prediction markets with other CEOs, Rick Wurster of Schwab, for example. They don't offer prediction markets right now, and he's told me that when and if they do offer, they don't want to offer sports because he sees that as gambling, and he doesn't see that as being aligned with his own financial services and what he's doing at his firm. What would you say to critics who say, well, maybe we understand prediction markets and event-based contracts on the economy and certain other parts, maybe oil prices, but we don't see sports fitting into financial services. What would you say to those critics?
I mean, I think the reality of it is sports is a big part of the economy. A lot of money is spent in sports, an increasing amount. And I think in particular with the potential automation that we see happening from AI, sports is one of those things that is continuing to be human. You don't really want to watch self-driving cars circling a track. It's less entertaining. So I think sports is actually big business, and it's a critical part of the economy, much more so than even 20 years ago. When you look at these franchises catching, 10 billion plus valuations, it's increasingly global. So the two worlds are starting to converge, and I think this new asset class is going to continue to grow and develop. And I think, a lot of competitors historically, you saw this with crypto, right? Mm-hmm. They sort of dismiss the asset class, and then eventually you'll hear the story shifting to, okay, well, yeah, we'll offer it, but only in these ways. And then eventually the story becomes, well, overwhelming demand from our customers, and now we're offering it, and we have to compete with where our customers are going. So I'd imagine it's the same thing, and it's hard for the incumbents to build and launch new stuff. So at first, while they're trying to figure out how to build it, they tend to take on a more defensive posture sometimes.
I wish we could talk prediction markets, but I have to ask you about Trump accounts. Can you explain briefly and maybe succinctly, because we have a ton more questions, how are you working with BNY and Treasury? What exactly is Robinhood doing versus BNY versus Treasury to administer Trump accounts?
Yeah, sure. So Trump accounts, for those that might not be familiar, it's a brokerage account from birth for every newborn, seeded with $1,000 by the Treasury. And Robinhood was chosen in partnership with BNY. Robinhood is going to be the sole initial trustee and broker for the Trump accounts, which means we're not only designing and building the Trump accounts app, which the aspiration will be is it's going to be the best product that the government's ever been associated with. That's what we hope for, and what we're building with the National Design Studio. But we're also the broker, so the accounts and the assets are going to be custody with us. And BNY, the storied oldest bank in the U.S., is serving as financial agent and national infrastructure manager.
Would parents be able to roll over those funds to another brokerage?
Yeah, eventually there will be rollovers, so you'll be able to move the accounts to the brokerage of your choice. There's no firm date on that. Everyone's eyes are on the July 4th launch and just making sure that the Trump accounts app and the initial experience is just really top notch.
You flagged some significant costs in relation to this program. Can you explain how the benefits outweigh the cost of this?
Yeah, so there was a lot of confusion on this. I'm glad that I have a chance to address it. So we announced at earnings that there's going to be $100 million cost with developing the Trump accounts. So not all of that has been incurred already, but that's what we anticipate it will be, and it will be profitable for us. So we're serving as a government subcontractor, and it's on a cost plus basis. So we're kind of billing for the costs, and really the cost comes from the fact that the U.S. government wants these accounts and the service to be handled really, really well by humans, right? So we have to staff up significant servicing because, there's 5.5 million children that have signed up already. There's 70 million children under the age of 18 in this country. So we've got to be ready to scale up to tens of millions of accounts relatively quickly with top-notch support and reliability.
Hey, Vlad, one more before we go. Coinbase today cutting 14% of staff. It cites volatile markets, AI, PayPal, Block, Crypto.com. They've had layoffs. What does that say to you about the industry right now?
I mean, I don't know what is going on in the internals of other companies. I think that...
Is it AI related or is it crypto related?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's a combination of both. I think that the timing, of course, is notable right in the thick of earnings season, but I can't really share more than that.